Right, lads, how's it going? We're going to be talking more about this One Piece chapter today because it was so hype. So hype. Primarily, we're going to be talking about Kobe now because there's a lot to say about Kobe right off the rip with him being kidnapped by Blackbeard. There's so much to say. Right, let's start. I believe we're going to get a thing, right? We're going to get a thing where Kobe's kidnapped by Blackbeard for whatever reason. I don't know what the reason is. Maybe it is because of Sword. Maybe Blackbeard knows his importance to it. Or maybe Rayleigh knows something about Kobe that we don't know. Maybe it is the fact that he was trained by Garp. Maybe they are trying to lure out Garp here. Maybe there's a play. Maybe Rayleigh knows what's up. He used Garp as bait to save Boa. Because he obviously has a relation to Boa, right? He cares about Boa. Hell, he could be. If you really, obviously that's not how it is, but Shaki is the second generation, right? So he could technically be, right? If we thought of this way, Rady could technically be Boa's granddad at this point, right? Because they're two generations removed. So it's okay, let's look at that one more time real quick. Rady could be Boa's granddad at this point. It could honestly be a thing, and that would make a lot more sense if Rayleigh was a lot more invested because of that. Because Shaki was the empress of the Isle of Women, Amazon Lily, 2 generations ago. So that's wild. That could be Boa's grandparents' energy, which is cool. It gives Boa a lot more status. And it kind of builds up to the fact that he's always saving her, and it's okay, he has a lot more investment than just I saved you once and now I'm invested in you. So it would make a lot more sense and push this agenda, but it would also make it reasonable for him to sort of sell out Garp, right? Because obviously we know Kobe and Helmet were trained under Garp, and we're assuming Kobe's part of Sword. Well, we know he's part of Sword. We know he's relatively high up in the whole Marines, right? And he probably knows what the SSG because Garp probably told him. He's probably connected to Garp in a lot more ways. And in my opinion, this could be important to Blackbeard kidnapping him. Because otherwise, I don't see a reason why he would do it. Do you see any way Rayleigh could give any, real selling power to Kobe? Oh, what can Kobe do? He could
You dumbass.
barely fight the queen of Amazon Lily. What's he gonna do? And don't get me wrong, Boa is probably an admiral level combatant, right? He could probably take Green Bull. Okay, she could probably take Green Bull at this point, but I don't think she's that strong in the sense where the strength Kobe being able to not die against her would make him worthy of being kidnapped by Blackbeard. Plus, we know he doesn't have a devil fruit, so he's not exactly the greatest Marine in the world. There's no value I can see to Kobe unless Rayleigh was able to make Blackbeard use Kobe as bait to get to Garp, and there's something they would want from Garp, which would make more sense because he has more information on the Marines. But we also know it could be sort of a courtesy thing because he mentions here. Now, I don't get the context behind this personally. I don't understand it one bit. But Blackbeard mentions, I think it's around here, that the Rocky Port incident that made Kobe famous helped out Blackbeard a lot. Because we have him talking about how, it seems like we're in a bit of an impasse, don't you think, hero? You did me a favor back at Rocky Port. That made it possible for me to oust Ochaku, who I don't know who that is. Maybe I'm having a brain fart. That could entirely be possible. But apparently it was the guy who ran Pirate Island, so he might have been a high up Marine. Maybe it's those fan characters that I'm drawing a blank on, but that's my point, right? Whatever happened, Kobe's important to Blackbeard. He helped him out some way, so it could be a courtesy thing, but I more so think it could be a way to get to Garp, because Garp probably has some sort of connection to Kobe in a heavy way since he trained him. It's probably sort of a Shanks Luffy situation, or it could be a Rayleigh Luffy situation, where people are going to pull up to help him. And also, obviously what this leads to is a confrontation between Luffy and Blackbeard, because I don't feel like Luffy's going to let Kobe be taken and not have a fight back, right? So that's obviously how we're going to get into Hachinosu. But the whole main point of what I'm talking about here is that this is so good, because if you think about it, the 3 islands we're talking about right now, as far as I know, I can't remember, there's 2 of them. I remember the 2 of them. It's Sphinx, Elbath, and Hachinosu Island, which there's 3 other people going to different places, and people are saying Law is going to Hachinosu. Now listen to me real quick. If Law is going to Hachinosu, we've got possibly 3 swords members on that island with Blackbeard. Think of the conflict. Think of the like political mind games in this, and think of the information they're trying to get. And if they're using Kobe as bait for Garp, you know, maybe Aokiji's in on it. Maybe there's a whole different thing that they're working on to try and attack Blackbeard. And maybe this whole conflict is what starts the war. Because obviously Garp, let's say Garp has a lot of respect for Kobe, and so does the Marines in general. And there's a faction of the Marines that go after Blackbeard to help Kobe and protect Kobe. And maybe Law's called in Sword, or maybe Aokiji's called in Sword, like, look, we have plans, but Kobe's captured and they're after Garp or something like that, right? And at this point, because the Marines are focusing on Blackbeard and also with the 7 warlords and everything, either Sabo does something to stoke a war, or Blackbeard himself declares war and calls in his whole ships, and then all the Cross Guild come in to try and get a piece of that. They have the bounty hunters going after the Marines on the island, and Hachinosu is a big battleground, and all of a sudden whatever happens on Elbath means fuck all, and we get the whole great final war that fucking dragon does nothing about. The bomb does nothing. I've been talking about Dragon being top 1 for ages. And literally, if Blackbeard is the one that ended up starting that final war, man, Dragon, you did nothing. You actually did nothing. And I feel bad for having, like, think of it this way, right? Naruto, let's talk about the big 3 for a second. Naruto's got Minato. Ichigo's got Ishin, right? 2 badass dads. Right, we got even Goku's got Bardock. I mean, he pretty much ruined the franchise on his own, which is an amazing feat, I might add. So, what Dragon? What are you doing, boys? What are you doing? Luffy's carried by his granddad. Let's be real. Yeah, it's wild. I'm excited. I really am, and I think it could lead to a lot of stuff with Law, because obviously people love Law. He's very popular, so he's gonna come back into the story. And I feel like this is a great way to bring him in. So let's say we get the whole Elbath stuff. Well, I'm going to talk about Elbath in an entirely separate video. There's so much Elbath hype now with this chapter that you can think of, right? If you take what Bo is saying literally, and if Rayleigh sticks around, but that's not important right now, because if this stuff goes down, we're probably going to get more information about Blackbeard, about the world, about the state of the Marines as a whole. He's probably going to do something about the pacifistas. He's probably going to go after Vegapunk next. He's probably like, I need this guy, right? He's not stupid. But also, there's a lot to be said. We'll actually talk about this in one big video, because I feel like I can't separate it into 2. I now believe that devil fruits, right? That certain particular Paramecia devil fruits no, let's just say all, right? I'm going to go with all. Every single fruit is a zone, in my opinion. Every single fruit in their purest form is a zone fruit, whether it's an ancient zone or a regular zone. My opinion is, right, you start out as a Paramecia or a Logia, right? And when a Paramecia or a Logia awaken, they become a zone fruit, right? Because that's what the inner soul of the fruit is. It's a person or an animal or something. And once you awaken that fruit, from then on, that fruit is his own fruit. So from now on, basically, if Luffy just went over and keeled over today, right? At that point now, if you ate the fruit, you'd get the Joy Boy powers immediately, because it's now a Zoan fruit, or you get Zoan elements of that fruit. And for example, let's say Boa awakens her fruit, right? You get like you get that sort of, Medusa sort of style. But that's what I'm saying, right? I think Blackbeard knows this. I think sort of something like this is what Blackbeard knows. And maybe, look, I don't know what kidnapping Kobe would have besides Garp, but I do feel like he's going after Vegapunk next. He obviously knew something about the Lunarians, because he was sort of like, what? Like, brown skin and white hair. What? He was confused. Like, it wasn't like he was confused because he didn't know it. It seemed like a confusion because he knew what that meant. He was like, that's crazy. So I feel like it's gonna be a big conflict, because the Marines are spread very thin. And they're probably not going after the warlords anymore, because we're gonna get we're going to get a lot of sort of, cross guild kind of putting a stop to that. And then if they're in a war with Blackbeard over Kobe and over different things, maybe Alkiji pulls his cover and that starts a big conflict. That also probably leaves Impel Down unguarded for someone to swoop in and save Doflamingo, which it actually it'd be very interesting here, right? If Doflamingo ends up working with the revolutionaries. We're talking about cross guild a lot, right? We're talking about cross guild all the time. But if you think about Dragon and him thinking about how to one up the Celestial Dragons with his plans going up in smoke, what's he gonna do? He's gonna get Doflamingo out from Impel Down. Do you know what I mean? And to me, that's probably what's gonna happen. That's Dragon's big contribution to this war, is him getting Doflamingo out of Impel Down and kind of getting information he needs off Doflamingo. I think that's a really possible situation. And then maybe Doflamingo backstabs him because we know he knew something about Emu and he was kind of hinting at it. Even he got his orders from higher, so Emu was ordering him around. So there's a lot that could happen with Dragon and Doflamingo and just Impel Down in general. But that is my point. This chapter is maybe more sure than ever that some sort of conflict is going to break out on Hachinosu involving Law, Alkiji, Kobe, and possibly Garp. This could be a big arc for Law. This could be where Law gets his kid moment where he's beaten up by Blackbeard, or maybe he aligns with Blackbeard. Maybe when we get out of Elbath, instead of this big war that I'm talking about, we get a big statement. Law allies with Blackbeard, right? Because obviously, if Alkiji's in on this, he's going to tell Law to play along because he doesn't want Law to break his cover if the whole Law sword theory is correct, and if not, Law won't want. If the whole Law sword theory isn't correct, Law won't want to cause problems on Hachinosu because he knows that's just going to be issues for him. He just got out of fighting Kaido. He's not going to create more enemies, right? And Blackbeard seems like a reasonable guy compared to the rest of them. He's just partying, he's just doing his thing. And obviously Law is into history and Blackbeard's into history. The alliance seems to match up, right? It would match up for Law. It would make sense why Law would want to do something like that. And I feel like it would be fascinating because it would be another thing where once we get out of Elbath, we'd be getting all this information and we'd be seeing these big names basically and what the whole reason was. And I do think, even if it doesn't start the war directly, this alliance and this sort of Kobe being kidnapped is what is going to kickstart the war. Because it not only would it put Kobe in focus heavily enough to have him involved primarily in the final saga and have him achieve his dream and have him have to fight against Blackbeard, having this happen would keep Law involved, would keep Alkiji involved, would make it so there's something going on outside of Elbath so our attention isn't pigeonholed to Elbath, keeps us speculating, everything like that. Because even if the Sabo stuff is revealed at Sphinx and we get Weevil and all this stuff, right? You still got the Hachinosu stuff. You still got Blackbeard being a big player, making some moves. You know what I mean? We got to make a move on Amazon Lily. Because we're probably going to figure out what happened with Boa at some point soon. Like within the next 20 chapters or so. But in my opinion, it's still... I think the only way you can argue Kobe being kidnapped is because it's leverage against Garp, and that's going to cause some problems in the Marines and different things. And I think it's interesting because the SSG, I think the Blackbeard's going to do something with the SSG. He's going to go after them. He seemed troubled by them, so I feel like that's going to start a lot of the conflict. And whether Blackbeard himself is the one to actually start this war, it is going to be a big implication, right? Whether it's Dragon doing something or even Sabo. At this point, it'd be hilarious if Dragon just gets outed and Sabo's starting this war. Because realistically, it's hard because I feel like if Blackbeard starts the war, the Great War on Hachinosu, the whole thing about the war starting after Luffy finds the One Piece seems a lot of bullshit, unless the One Piece is on Elbath. Because Luffy's not going to hear when he gets out of Elbath, oh yeah, Kobe and Law are in trouble. And he's not going to be like, oh no, I'm going to go straight for the One Piece boys. Forget them, right? Now you could argue if Shanks is there, he's like, nah, Luffy, you'd be better off getting the One Piece. You can handle them later. We'll head off and deal with that, right? Something like that. And that could arguably make sense, but I don't know. But hey, we'll see. We'll see what they do. I'm really excited in my personal opinion. I don't. What do you guys think though? Because I would be really interested to see what you guys think about this outlandish motherfucking idea. Because I don't know. I'd be happy. I'd be happy with it, to be honest. If Law gets some screen time, Alkiji gets some screen time, we get more Blackbeard. Honestly, man, I'm starting to really like Blackbeard. I still wouldn't put him top one. I think top one's a bit wild, but whatever, man. Whatever. You know what I mean?